Hello, welcome to the Honest Wargamer. I'm your host, Rob, and this is the updates for the Fyreslayers army for Age of Sigmar 4. If you haven't been keeping up to date, Age of Sigmar 4 is getting its new season launching in about a month's time, the Scourge of Ghyran. And the Scourge of Ghyran has a bunch of additional content, as well as new GHB stuff, which I'll be covering in a separate video, and some free content for each additional army, or each army in the game, and it's all free additional content you're going to be able to use over the course of the year, which is, in my opinion, pretty exciting. So let me know what you think. This today is Fyreslayers, and again, not necessarily a super popular faction or an army with a high pick rate, but they are very thematic and they tie really well with what many Warhammer fans have thought of dwarves as for many years. You know, chosen to die, or choosing to die to fight, their heroic fights at the end. It's very cool. It's very thematic. It's very fun. All right, so you don't get any new battle formations as a free additional content, but what you do get, the reason I keep saying free additional content, by the way, is because I'm just pumped. I'm pumped that Games Workshop are putting stuff out every day for Age of Sigmar, and some of it's actually been fun and enjoyable. And as someone who's had to go through every single battle tome review that's just been copy and paste and streaming to sometimes several hundred people while we're reviewing a new battle tome, and it's just, they're disappointed. They're like, oh, it's the same as the index. Everything's the same. Like, it's really nice to see something new. I feel like a thirsty man who's finally got some drink, and I'm excited. So that's why I keep saying it, because it's exciting, because we've had a pretty rubbish time up till now. All right. So, Marks of Volcatrix. This is an additional set of upgrades for your Magma Droths. So this will be an enhancement type, which means there are different enhancements. You've got artifacts, you've got prayer laws, you've got spell laws, you've got manifestation laws as an example. And now you've got an additional one, which is the Marks of Volcatrix. So you can take one of these for free on one of your Magma Droths, which is good. It's just which means you've directly uplifted or upgraded something in your army, and other armies don't gain access to that enhancement type. So it's just it's a good thing for Fyreslayers. Okay. So the first one is the Incandescent Blaze ability, which is used once per battle in your shooting phase. For the rest of the turn, it doubles the attacks characteristic of this unit's Roaring Firestream. This unit's Roaring Firestream has damage characteristic of 3. This means you can have 8 attacks at damage 3 on 3s and 3s, which is pretty good. It's only once per battle, but that's a lot that you can do a lot with. You can also give yourself +1 to hit, so it can be like 2s and 3s. So this can do a lot of damage. It's only once per battle the one time, but that could be very impactful if you're hitting into exactly the right target. So I think this is very, very good. The next one is a passive called Thickened Scales, where you subtract 1 from the rank characteristic of targets, characteristic of weapons that target that unit. That's also obviously positive in keeping one of your Magma Droths more alive. Obviously, with all-out defense, this basically means you can add +1, and then they're not going to add a -1, or they can take one of the -1s away. So you could just end up with a 3-up save, which is really nice with your all-out defense, and it means you're more survivable. So that's pretty good, and will come up more often than the Incandescent Blaze, because it's a passive that you can use in every combat. But you start at a 4-up save, and you've only got 14 health and not necessarily great wards all the time. So this is okay. And then you've got Peerless Lineage, which is a reaction to you declaring a rampage for this unit. You can pick another eligible unit to be the second target of that rampage ability. If the ability requires you to roll, you must roll for each target. So this is nice. So you can use a rampage twice. So there's lots of good rampages. I think there's a -1 to save rampage that you can do. Pick 2 units and -1 to save. Very good. Exactly what you might want, which is nice. So these aren't necessarily as strong as maybe what we saw from KO, who have like a 4-up spell ignore around a boat, which is pretty good. But these feel good and situational, but they're not over the top. And I think it wouldn't have been too bad to maybe have made one of the Magma Droths super over the top. So I would have liked to have maybe seen these be a little bit more effective. But I think the one I like the most here is the double rampage. Pick the right rampage at the right time, and I think that's more situationally useful than either of the other two. So I think that's the one that really stands out to me, but let me know in the comments which is your favorite. Next up, you get a new prayer law to choose from. So you choose between your old prayer law, and let's just remind ourselves of exactly what's in that prayer law, shall we? What you've got is the ability to make a unit not be battle damaged and add +1 to the attacks characteristic of the companion weapon, which is okay. You got the ability to make a infantry hero fight twice. And you've also got the ability to make a unit be -1 to wound rolls, which is quite effective for making you not as fragile, which is, I think, fair. Okay, if we go and look at the actual, if we go and, ignore what you just saw here. If you go look at the prayer law that we've got now, the first one is the Ichor of the Ur Salamander, which is only a 3, which means it's super low, and the empowered version is a 6, so very, very low. It's also an unlimited prayer, and it does feel like this update is really geared towards having many magma droths. And what you do is you would pick a monster holier than 12 inches of the priest, and then anytime that you are going to use the Volcanic Blood ability, which is you're in combat, you roll a 1 to save with your magma droth, then they're going to take a mortal damage. After the damage sequence has been resolved, you inflict 3 mortal damage on that enemy unit. If the chanting roll was a 6+, you inflict D3 plus 3 mortals. Now, this is an unlimited spell, which means you can put it onto multiple magma droths. That means if you throw them into combat and you roll a bunch of 1s, you could do a ton of mortal damage onto your opponent, which is quite scary for them. And also, obviously, you can fight and do some stuff. So this is quite interesting. It's a very low cast value. I think this one could work out really well. So we'll have to see. Then next up is the Fury of the Volcatrix, which is cast on a 4. You pick a friendly Fyreslayer unit holier than 12 inches of the caster. Add on hit rolls that targets combat attacks, including those made with companion weapons, to start next turn. In addition, if the chant roll was an 8, you add 2 to the attacks characteristic of the companion weapon. So that's not too bad. +2 to the attacks characteristic is good. With the changes to all-out attack, which is, in the new GHB, the change to all-out attack is if you do all-out attack, which is +1 to hit, you're now -1 to your save. This is obviously pretty disastrous for lots of combat armies, but much better for shooting armies. But now getting +1 to hit in a different way is at least nice, even if this doesn't target a monster, because it doesn't have to necessarily target a monster, but obviously it's very good. It's very good for being able to add +2 attacks to companion weapons. And the last one, Blazing Impetus, is just good for your whole army. It's on a 5. You pick a friendly Fyreslayer unit wholly within 12 inches. The target can use a normal move. This is obviously going to be in the hero phase, but you can also do this in your opponent's hero phase. And if the chant rolls a 10+, you can pick another eligible unit to be the second target. Now, 10+ is really high, but making a normal move in the hero phase preceded by another move, you can make some very fast units in Fyreslayers now, and that's very good because predominantly you're a combat army, you want to go and fight and hit stuff. Mobility is always an issue, so I think this is really good. So I think overall, there's probably an argument for either of the 2 prayer laws. Let me know if you are a pro Fyreslayer player in the chat or in the comments, which you prefer. I really like the idea. Obviously, this entire update says run a lot of salamanders. So I like the Ichor of the Ur Salamander for that. Now, we've only got 1 War Scroll. So Fyreslayers players did get robbed a little bit. Everyone else got 2 alternative War Scrolls. This means you can either have a Scourge of Ghyran, Auric Runeson, and Magma Droth in your army, or multiples, but they all have to be Scourge of Ghyran ones, or you can have one from your index. You can't have both types in an army. But this is an alternative War Scroll for the Auric Runeson on Magma Droth. So 14 health, 4 up save, moves 10, control value 5. Bit of a classic monster. Does have a 6 up ward save, and it's got those 4 attacks that do damage D3 from the Roaring Fire Stream. But if anything, this is a combat piece. With 14 health, a 4 up save, a 6 up ward save, I'd say it's survivable, but not necessarily frontline survival. Like, it's very, no, it is tough. It's super, super tough. But like, there is just monsters and or units which have higher wound pools and better saves. Now, it's pretty good in combat already, with 6 attacks, damage 2, and 2 attacks, damage 3 from the companion weapons, and 5 attacks with the holy profile of 3 3s, rend 1, damage 2 from the ancestral weapon from this guy. But I think what's got everyone very excited is this new ability, Fire, Blood, and Vengeance, which is done once per battle in your deployment phase. Pick a friendly Auric Runefather on Magma Droth on the battlefield to be the target. You add 1 to the damage characteristic of this unit's melee weapons, including companion weapons, while the target is in combat or destroyed. So I think what's got people excited is you can take 1 Auric Runefather on Magma Droth and multiple Rune Sons, and now we're going to be adding +1 damage to all of their attacks, including the companion weapons, which does change the profile in this a lot. We've got 5 attacks, damage 3, 6 attacks, damage 3, and 2 attacks, damage 4. Also, if we use the prayer from the new prayer law up above, this does mean we could have 5 attacks, damage 3, we could have 8 attacks, damage 3 from the claws and horns, and 4 attacks, damage 4 from the Magma Droth Blaze and more. That's a lot of output. That's a lot of output available from these, which I think is pretty impressive, and is going to maybe rip through stuff very quickly. The real question we got to ask is it going to do enough damage? So it's got a Rampage called Calamitous Crash, where once per turn in any combat phase, pick an enemy unit in combat with this unit, you roll dice on a 3+, and roll a dice for each model of the target unit. On a 5+, you inflict a mortal. I think one of the problems with this, obviously, is that they've given you an ability that means you can take multiple Magma Droths, and then another ability which is only once per turn army, like most Rampages are, but it does mean that you're not going to get as many Rampages out of your army as sometimes you would get by having multiple different monsters. And also you do that mortal in combat from the Volcanic Blood down here. So that is the singular update. I think one of the things I would have really liked to have seen for the Fyreslayer update is I would like to see a slightly better shooting unit. I think that would have been good. Their shooting unit got, I think, pretty grossly nerfed between 3rd edition and 4th edition, and I think that would have been a nice way of kind of changing some elements of maybe how you would see a Fyreslayer army play. At least giving them an alternative way to maybe move the army around. Instead, what it very much seems like is they feel like, or it looks like, they think that monsters aren't really as punchy as they want it to be, and they do want to see armies of Magma Droths, or build the theme of armies of Magma Droths running around the board. And so everything has been geared up to that. And I'm sure there's a lot of Fyreslayer players who are pretty excited about that. The Magma Droth is a cool model. It's been around now for like 10 years, which is pretty fun. But like I think Magma Droth themed armies is something people have wanted a lot, and they have been popular and also effective in Age of Sigmar in the past. So I think seeing that come back is something that the rules designers clearly want. And also I think Fyreslayers players will be pretty happy about, seeing as it has right now been about taking lots of infantry and putting them on the board. But very much like Kerajan Overlords, they've got a pretty limited roster, and they're pretty one-note because they're all combat. So it would have been nice to have seen them add some effective shooting in the game as well. That would have been fun. Anyway, to all the Fyreslayers players out there, both of you, let me know what you think of the update. I'm really excited to know what your thoughts are. Please do leave some comments. Thank you to the Twitch chat for hanging out with me while I do it, and everyone on Patreon for supporting me. Thanks very much.